When you hear the name Carrie Fisher, what do you think of? A space princess dressed all in white? A rebel disguised as a bounty hunter trying to rescue Han Solo? Or a cheeky 60-year-old woman covered in glitter with a middle finger proudly in the air? Carrie Fisher was all of those things and much more. She was a princess and a general, but she was also a mental health advocate, a writer, and one funny dame. For so many of us, Carrie was not just a hero on screen, but a hero in real life as well. She had battled addiction, survived mental illness, challenged sexism in Hollywood, and she did it all with candor and wit. On this episode, you'll hear Carrie's thoughts about growing up in the shadow of her famous mother, Debbie Reynolds. You'll also hear her thoughts on what it meant to be the ambassador of Leia, and also how she learned to outlast her problems and, in her words, thrive. So let's grab our lightsabers, raise them high to honor the great Carrie Fisher. This is ForceCenter Presents The Jedi Beat. I'm your host, Jennifer Landa. Long before she was a princess of Alderaan, Carrie Frances Fisher was considered royalty. Her parents, actress Debbie Reynolds and singer Eddie Fisher, were known as America's sweethearts in the 1950s. So when Carrie Fisher was born in a Burbank hospital on October 21st, 1956, her entrance into the world was memorable. In the 50s, epidurals were not an option for mothers in labor. That wouldn't happen until the 1970s. Instead, Debbie Reynolds was given an anesthetic, and as a result, was unconscious for Carrie's arrival. Carrie's father, Eddie, meanwhile, faded at the mere sight of the newborn. The nurses in the hospital room immediately rushed over to help and gawk at the famous crooner lying on the ground. In her memoir, Wishful Drinking, Carrie reflects, quote, "When I arrived, I was virtually unattended, and I've been trying to make up for that fact ever since," end quote. 2 hours after she was born, Carrie was photographed with her movie star mother and pop sensation father for Modern Screen magazine. As a child of two Hollywood stars, Carrie was thrust into the press from the day she was born. As a baby, she had no say, but the press felt entitled to comment on Carrie's every move. For example, the Australian Women's Weekly magazine remarked that Carrie looked a bit worried about being photographed, which is true. Carrie told Esquire magazine in 1985, quote, "I was photographed at an age when I was helpless to do anything about it. 2 hours. You can tell from the distressed look on my face in all my childhood pictures that I don't like to be photographed," end quote. The Australian Women's Weekly also referred to Carrie as the, quote, "husky offspring of Reynolds and Fisher." She was only 2.5 months old, yet her appearance was already being judged. For the first year and a half, life was pretty good in the Fisher-Reynolds household. They were Hollywood's golden family, until Carrie's father left her mother for Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth and her former husband Mike Todd had been close friends with Debbie and Eddie. So when Mike Todd tragically died in a small plane crash, Eddie comforted Elizabeth, in more ways than one. As if betrayal wasn't enough, Debbie and the kids had to deal with a divorce in the public eye. The paparazzi hounded the trio wherever they went. The press dove through trees to get pictures of Debbie and her children, and Debbie, who was 27 years old at the time, kept her composure and grace throughout the public drama. But Carrie? If you look at the photos from that period in her life, she was a toddler who looked scared and wary of the crowd with their cameras. In the documentary Bright Lights, Carrie said that she remembers the sensation of the paparazzi trampling over her and her brother Todd to get a photo of their mother. She said that the experience made her feel like their mother belonged to the photographers. Having to share her mother with the rest of the world was something Carrie would wrestle with for many years to come. The media circus would continue the following year when Debbie Reynolds married shoe mogul Harry Karl. The movie star and the multimillionaire, from outward appearances, it looked like a great match. The family lived in a sprawling estate that Carrie dubbed the Embassy because, quote, "it looked like a place where you'd get your passport stamped," end quote. Their lavish lifestyle did not make up for the cold and sterile feeling Carrie had in their home, nor did it make up for the fact that Debbie was often away, performing shows in Vegas. Carrie recalled that when she and Todd would miss their mother, they would go into her closet and put their faces into her clothes and inhale the powdery, flowery scent of their mother. When Debbie was home, she usually slept a lot because she was so exhausted from the strains of performing. As for Harry, Carrie thought of him as a very weird guy. Harry did not have movie star looks, but he was distinguished looking. He enjoyed keeping himself well manicured and groomed. In fact, Harry was regularly visited by his barber. who was actually a pimp, and manicurists, who were actually prostitutes. And over the course of their 13-year marriage, Harry gambled away Debbie's $100 million fortune. Never one to feel sorry for herself, Debbie did what she always did best: put on a good show. Since Debbie was now a single mother, Carrie and Todd moved with their mother to New York City. In 1973, Debbie Reynolds made her Broadway debut as Irene O'Dare in the musical comedy Irene. It would also mark the Broadway debut for Carrie, who played a debutante in the chorus. Carrie was only 15 years old, and therefore had to drop out of Beverly Hills High School in order to take the role in the musical. However, this was not Carrie's musical debut. When she was 13, she regularly performed with her mother in her Las Vegas shows. Carrie has said that her mother Debbie wanted to groom her for show business so that Carrie could one day have her own nightclub act in Vegas. Here's Carrie in 1971.
When tears are in your eyes, I will drive them away.
While she would go on to become a great actress and established writer, the biggest thing that broke her mother's heart was that Carrie never became a professional singer.
Eddie had a great voice, really beautiful voice. I guess she doesn't want to be Eddie and she doesn't want to be Debbie. She wants to be Carrie, so she'll do it her way.
There are different versions of why Carrie eventually decided to pursue any career in show business. In her first appearance on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson in 1983, she told him,
"Somebody told me you were not allowed to get dirty."
No, we were photographed a lot. We were allowed sort of once a week. We were let loose on the gutter, and then we could get dirty, which is a big thrill for us. It's one of the reasons I went into show business was I visited the set and watched my mother fall in mud and stuff, and I thought, well, there's a way to do it.
But later in life, Carrie said that she initially didn't want to have anything to do with the entertainment industry. In her 2016 memoir, The Princess Diarist, she confessed that it turned out to be a lot harder to stay out of the famous fray than to enter it. She also shared that growing up with famous parents showed her firsthand how fleeting and fickle fame could be. She once told Oprah,
"Celebrity is just obscurity biding its time.
Wow.
Eventually, all fame will disappear."
Yeah.
And I watched that happen. So I never wanted to go into show business. It's heartbreaking. I watched that be heartbreaking.
So Carrie has said that she has no idea why she decided to visit the set of Shampoo, knowing that she might get a role in the film. She was only 17 at the time, which made her perfect for the role of Lorna, a rich kid who sleeps with her mother's hairdresser, played by Warren Beatty, as an act of revenge.
Are you?
My what? What are you talking about?
Making it with my mother.
I'd like to do your hair sometime.
Carrie only has 2 scenes in the film, but even at a young age, you can tell she had the it factor. Prior to filming, the costume designer asked the producer, co-writer, and star of Shampoo, Warren Beatty, if Carrie should wear a bra under her shirt. According to Carrie, Warren stood there, looked at her, then asked to see what it would look like without her bra. So Carrie changed, returned to Warren braless under her shirt, and he again stood there, looked at her, and said, "Let's go without." We don't know why Warren made that wardrobe choice. In the 1970s, it was both a political and fashion statement not to wear a bra. Or maybe it was because he thought it was more authentic to the character. Regardless, 17-year-old Carrie had no say in the matter. Who knows what choice Carrie would have made if given the power to choose, but bras would be a topic of discussion for years to come. After the movie Shampoo, Carrie moved to England to study at the Central School of Speech and Drama, whose alumni include Laurence Olivier, Dame Judi Dench, and Bodhi Rick himself, Riz Ahmed. Carrie was thrilled to be living on her own far, far away from her mother. An added bonus was learning the craft of acting. She still wasn't sure she wanted to make a career out of it, but she was only 17, so she still had some time to figure those things out. The normalcy would be short-lived, thanks to a little sci-fi film directed by some guy from Modesto. In 1975, directors George Lucas and Brian De Palma decided to hold joint casting sessions for their films. The 2 directors were looking for actors around the same age, so they sat together and auditioned actors for both films, Carrie and Star Wars. For George Lucas, finding the right actors and the right chemistry between his cast would take months.
I've made movies with very young people that have no track record. So I have to kind of go through and discover them, pick them, and then test them and go through them and have readings. And so it takes a long time. I spent probably 6 or 7 months casting Star Wars, and that's a long process to sit in a little room and interview people. And I interviewed thousands of people.
Young actors like Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone auditioned for the role of Han Solo. Actresses like Jodie Foster and Cindy Williams auditioned for the role of Princess Leia.
Our only hope in destroying it is to find its weakness.
The role of Princess Leia was a challenging one. The actress who would take on the role would have to be young, but believable as a leader, strong-willed and defiant, yet likable, regal, but capable of shooting a blaster. Plus, she'd have to be able to effortlessly rattle off absurd lines of dialogue.
The plans and specifications to a battle station with enough firepower to destroy an entire system.
Carrie Fisher seemed like the perfect fit for Princess Leia Organa. After all, Carrie was already considered a Hollywood royal thanks to her parents. Carrie Fisher booked the once-in-a-lifetime role of Princess Leia on one condition.
I got it with the proviso that I went to a fat farm and that I lose 10 pounds, and that I think they were hoping it was going to come out 5 here and 5 here.
Looking at it now, it is concerning that Carrie would be forced to lose 10 pounds from her already petite frame. Unfortunately, it was common for actresses to have weight clauses in their contracts. This would ensure that the actress would maintain or stay below a designated weight. So to lose those 10 pounds, Carrie went away to a weight loss camp in Texas. At the camp, she formed friendships with former First Lady Lady Bird Johnson and advice columnist Ann Landers over unsatisfying meals. According to Carrie, when she left, she weighed 105 pounds, the same amount as when she arrived. As we know, when it came to creating the world of Star Wars, every detail was scrutinized and perfected. Hairdresser Pat McDermott was given several sketches of hairstyles that she should use as a guideline to Princess Leia's hairstyle. She tried out ponytails, braids, wrapping, pinning, hairspraying until she finally found a hairstyle that she felt confident George Lucas would like. Carrie was not so confident. Having just been sent to a weight loss camp made her feel, understandably, self-conscious.
Well, I weighed about 105 at the time. Well, no, but to be fair now, I carried about 50 of those pounds in my face. So you know what a good idea would be, though? Give me a hairstyle that further widens my already wide face.
As Carrie wrote in The Princess Diarist, the consensus amongst the director and male producers was that the hairstyle was flattering. When George Lucas asked Carrie what she thought of the hair buns, Carrie, who was worried she'd be fired for not losing weight, agreeably said, "I love it." Little did she know then that those hair buns would become iconic for Leia and Carrie herself. While Carrie may have felt insecure at that time, if you met her in person, you'd never have guessed it. To those around her, she had a magnetic personality that drew everyone in. When Mark Hamill first met her, he was 24 years old, and he figured he wouldn't have much in common with a teenage kid like Carrie. However, after their first meeting, he remarked, quote, "She was so charming, so funny, so adorable, so wise beyond her years, and brutally frank," end quote. On the first day of filming Star Wars A New Hope, Carrie arrived on set with her hair in 2 buns and wearing a long-sleeved silky white dress with an embellished white leather belt wrapped around her waist. She was taken to George Lucas for final approval of the costume before they were to begin filming.
They put the dress on me the first day. They bring me to George. Takes one look at me and he says, "You can't wear a bra underneath that dress." So I say, "Why?" He says, "Because there's no underwear in space."
Many years later, Carrie was performing her one-woman show Wishful Drinking, like the clip you just saw, in Berkeley, California. After the show, George visited Carrie backstage and explained how he had arrived at that bizarre no underwear in space decision years earlier. He told Carrie that when you go to space, you become weightless. Your body expands, but your underwear doesn't. Carrie was hilariously baffled by George's reasoning. In her memoir, Carrie hypothesized that if your body expands, but your bra doesn't, you would get strangled by your own bra. What a fantastic obituary, she thought. Quote, "So I tell my younger friends that no matter how I go, I want it reported that I drowned in moonlight, strangled by my own bra," end quote. Making Star Wars was exciting, but also anxiety-provoking for Carrie because she was one of the few women on the set of Star Wars. Here she is in an interview with Terry Gross on Fresh Air in 2016.
So was it a very boys kind of set when you were making the film?
Yeah.
Did that add to your feeling of insecurity?
I think I sort of felt isolated. You know, I didn't really have anyone. I didn't confide in men. Well, I didn't confide in anyone then.
If you've read Carrie's memoir, The Princess Diarist, she uses humor and thoughtfulness to reflect on her insecurities during the filming of Star Wars. In the book are excerpts from the journals that she kept during that time. The excerpts are raw with emotion, vulnerability, and sadness. They are also primarily about her affair with Harrison Ford. As she admitted in The Princess Diarist, her issues with abandonment could be traced back to her father, who left the family when she was 18 months old. Quote, "If I couldn't get my own father to love me enough to stick around, or, God forbid, visit more often than one day a year, how was I ever going to get a man who didn't have to love me like daddies were supposed to?" End quote. As Carrie once introspectively said, she was more defined by her father's absence than his presence. But any insecurities she may have had off-screen, on-screen as Leia, she became one of the greatest heroines in cinema. The impact Princess Leia has had on generations of fans around the world is immeasurable. She was unlike any other princess on screen before her, and she set the bar for what a movie heroine could be.
Somebody has to save our skins. Into the garbage, you fly boy.
Here's Carrie Fisher talking about her groundbreaking character on The Mike Douglas Show in 1977.
It's not your damsel in distress, average, everyday, run-of-the-mill princess. She doesn't scream and faint without the guys. She's okay on her own. George has written terrific characters for all of us. He didn't write sort of your, oh God, please help me, Mike, please, they're chasing me, the stormtroopers.
It's no longer believable, huh?
No, she's a very independent girl. She goes swing across, shoots stormtroopers, hangs around with Wookiees and Jawas and sand people. You know.
Princess Leia is strong, yet elegant, feisty yet diplomatic, and it is because Carrie Fisher used her natural essence to craft her performance that the character became iconic. My first memories of Leia were from Return of the Jedi, since that's the first Star Wars movie I saw. To me, Princess Leia was perfect. She rescues Han Solo from being frozen in carbonite, she exudes power and strength, and she kills a giant slug while wearing that infamous bikini. In regards to that bikini, Carrie hated it. Like over 30 years later, she was still talking about how much she hated it. Before filming, George asked her to come out to San Francisco to discuss the script for Return of the Jedi. During their meeting, George showed her a sketch of Leia wearing that bikini. Here she is on Fresh Air remembering that moment.
When he showed me the outfit, I thought he was kidding. It made me very nervous. I had to sit very straight because I couldn't have lines on my sides, you know, like a little crease. No creases were allowed. So I just sit very, very rigid straight.
For Carrie, the only thing that redeemed having to wear that skimpy bikini was embodying female empowerment and becoming a Huttslayer.
I sawed his neck off with that chain that I killed him with. I really relished that because I hated wearing that outfit and sitting there rigid straight, and I couldn't wait to kill him.
Carrie never seemed entirely comfortable being a sex symbol. Whether she was talking about her braless appearance in Shampoo or sharing her discomfort about laying next to a drooling slug while wearing a bikini, Carrie often examined how it was never her choice to become an object of desire. So what was one piece of advice Carrie gave to Star Wars newcomer Daisy Ridley? Quote, "You should fight for your outfit. Don't be a slave like I was." End quote. It was around the time of Return of the Jedi that Carrie's relationship with drugs began to intensify. She was 13 when she first tried marijuana, and her experimentation with the drug continued over the next 6 years. During the 3 months of filming A New Hope, she found herself occasionally drinking alcohol, even though she hated the feeling it gave her, and more frequently smoking Harrison Ford's preferred strain of pot. During the filming of The Empire Strikes Back, Carrie said that she did cocaine on the set of The Planet Hoth. But like alcohol, later Carrie admitted that, quote, "I didn't even like coke that much. It was just a case of getting on whatever train I needed to take to get high," end quote. By Return of the Jedi, she had found a new train to board: hallucinogens and painkillers. It became apparent to her mother, Debbie, that Carrie had a drug problem. So she called someone whom she thought might be able to counsel her daughter and turn her off the drug-beaten path, and that person was Cary Grant. During the 1950s and 60s, Cary Grant regularly dropped acid under the supervision of a psychiatrist. Over the course of a decade, he dropped acid more than 100 times. He was a big advocate for the experimental drug, saying that it loosened his deep fears, made him happier, and that he believed there was a curative power in the drug itself. So if anyone knew about acid, it was Cary Grant. When Carrie called Carrie, they spent an hour on the phone chatting about her LSD addiction. She wasn't addicted to LSD, Carrie told Carrie. He believed her, and they ended the conversation amiably. What she failed to mention was that she wasn't addicted to LSD, she was addicted to opiates. In 1983, Carrie Fisher married singer-songwriter Paul Simon in a ceremony in his apartment. The two initially met shortly after A New Hope was released. According to Carrie, she and Paul understood each other perfectly. Although they were only married for 2 years, they were together on and off for 12 years. Their marriage wouldn't last for several reasons, and one of them was Carrie's drug addiction that had spiraled out of control. Carrie knew she had a problem. Quote, "Slowly I realized I was doing a bit more drugs than other people and losing my choice in the matter," end quote. Even John Belushi, who was a well-known drug addict, saw himself in her. By 1984, she was taking up to 30 Percodan a day. She told Psychology Today in 2001 that with an addiction like that, quote, "you don't even get high. It's like a job. You punch in," end quote. To keep her habit going, she lied to doctors and looked through friends' medicine cabinets and drawers. Now, one of the most admirable qualities about Carrie Fisher is how hard she worked to understand her addiction and that she was willing to share her findings with the world. Here she is talking to interviewer Charlie Rose in 1994. Trying to keep up that act took a toll on Carrie until one day, it happened. Here's her mom, Debbie Reynolds, on The Oprah Show.
She was doing a film. She had collapsed on the set, and they had taken her to Cedars-Sinai. First of all, it was a terrifying night. It was pouring rain, so you can just picture you're in the car with the rain smashing against the windshield, and you're crying like mad, and you don't know if your daughter's going to be alive when you get there.
Almost dying shocked Carrie into going to rehab. It was there that she was diagnosed with manic depression, which would later be called bipolar disorder. The textbook definition is a disorder associated with mood swings, ranging from depressive lows to manic highs. Being diagnosed bipolar at 24 years old didn't come as a complete shock to Carrie or her family. She'd always felt that she was different, or as she put it, that there was, quote, something wrong with her. Her mother, Debbie, had noticed a change in Carrie's personality when she was 13. Carrie's manic episodes made her feel excited, happy, and euphoric, while her depressive episodes made her want to lay in bed all day. Despite being diagnosed, Carrie had a difficult time accepting her illness and that it would be a condition she'd have to deal with for the rest of her life. In 1985, after her near-death experience, Carrie did an interview for Esquire magazine. In the interview, she's brilliantly witty and tackles difficult subjects like divorce, drugs, and mental health. Here she is in 2008 explaining why she always found the humor in her darkest hours.
It better get funny fast or it's just going to be something that haunts you. So I make very difficult situations in my life funny as quickly as possible.
That 1985 Esquire magazine article made such an impact that a publishing house read the interview and wrote Carrie a letter asking if she wanted to write a book. Writing had always been a passion of hers. Carrie had been writing since she was 12, keeping daily journals and writing poetry. For her first novel, she decided to tackle the very personal subject of a complicated relationship between a daughter and her mother. Postcards from the Edge was the first novel that Carrie Fisher wrote that was later adapted into a film. The film starred Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine and was written by Carrie. It's a semi-autobiographical story about a rehabbed actress struggling in her mom's shadow.
Remember my 17th birthday party when you lifted your skirt up in front of all those people?
I did not lift
including
my
that guy,
skirt.
Michael.
It twirled up! You only remember the bad stuff, don't you? What about the big band that I got to play at that party? Do you remember that? No! You only remember that my skirt accidentally twirled up!
And you weren't wearing any underwear.
Well,
The novel, Postcards from the Edge, became a bestseller, and the film was #1 at the box office on opening weekend. The film would also be nominated for 2 Academy Awards, including Best Actress for Meryl Streep and Best Original Song. Some have asked why Carrie Fisher didn't take the lead role in a film that was loosely based upon her life. She told Larry King in 1990 that the thought had never occurred to her. She felt that portraying Suzanne would have been too intense, and she didn't like the idea of saying her own dialogue. As for the role of her mother that would eventually go to Shirley MacLaine, Carrie's own mother lobbied for the part of Doris, but at the time, Carrie thought it would be too weird. In hindsight, she confessed that her mother should have gotten the role. Quote, "She would have been great," end quote. After the success of Postcards from the Edge, Carrie was asked to do a rewrite on Steven Spielberg's Hook. They wanted her to rewrite Tinkerbell's part, played by Julia Roberts, which meant she ended up rewriting every scene that Tinkerbell was in. Carrie was uncredited for the writing she did on the film. However, her work on Hook led to Carrie becoming one of the most sought-after script doctors in Hollywood. She was recruited by Whoopi Goldberg to rework Whoopi's dialogue in the film's Sister Act, and that led to script doctoring on Lethal Weapon 3 and Whoopi Goldberg's 1993 film Made in America with Ted Danson. George Lucas also hired Carrie to write an episode for The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, his TV series that aired on ABC from 1992 to 93. According to a story she told the Daily Beast in 2015, Carrie admitted that she was a script doctor on the Star Wars prequels. But when the interviewer pressed her on which scenes she rewrote, she coyly said, quote, "Oh no, I can't play," end quote. Carrie had a lucrative career as a script doctor throughout the 90s, but by the early 2000s, she stopped taking on projects. Carrie later shared that in order to get a rewrite job, she had to submit notes or ideas on how to fix the script, quote, "so they can get all the notes from all the different writers, keep the notes, and not hire you. That's free work, and that's what I always call life-wasting events," end quote. A life-changing event that occurred in the 90s was the birth of her daughter, Billie, in 1992. Billie's father is Hollywood super agent Brian Lord, who Carrie dated for 3 years. They split 1 year after Billie was born when Brian left Carrie for another man. In an interview with the Daily Mail, Carrie said that she felt humiliated and betrayed, but Carrie got through the heartache and ended up having a friendly relationship with Brian, even going on vacations with Billie, Brian, and his boyfriend. And in classic Carrie fashion, she managed to find the humor in the situation. Quote, "I'm glad I got Billie a good dad. He's everything my father wasn't, including gay," end quote. In 1997, Carrie was in a deep depression. Getting out of bed to pick up 8-year-old Billie from school felt impossible. Doctors had prescribed her medication, but it wasn't helping. And then she suffered a psychotic break. When she admitted herself into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center's Psychiatric Ward, she did not write her name upon checking in.
I wrote with my left hand, and I wrote the word shame. But I was really, it was something that you would be ashamed of, to lose control to that extent.
The doctors believed Carrie was allergic to one of the medications she was taking. In order to determine which one it was, they took her off all her meds.
I was allergic to a medication, so what they did was to find out what medication it was, they took me off everything. And I said to them, I won't sleep. And they said, no one ever, died from losing one night's sleep.
Right.
So 6 nights later, I was still awake. I thought everything on TV was about me, which makes hard programming.
This is after your 6 days of being awake.
6 days of being awake, and I also was getting secret messages from the movie The Young Lions.
Wow.
After her hospitalization, she did something in true Carrie fashion. She threw a party. Carrie was a bit nervous on how her guests would react, but the party was a success. She even rented an ambulance and a gurney that had a life-size cutout of Princess Leia hooked up to an IV. Over the years, her psychiatrist had recommended she try a more controversial treatment, electroconvulsive therapy, formerly known as shock treatment. Carrie felt like it worked. She felt like the treatment punched the dark lights out of her depression and achieved what antidepressant medication couldn't do on its own. The electroconvulsive therapy in combination with her medication worked for many years, until 2013, when she had a bipolar episode on stage while headlining a cruise in the Caribbean. Carrie said she went completely off the rails. She was in a severe manic state, totally delusional. The audience started leaving. Gary, her dog, peed on stage, and the whole thing was caught on video and uploaded online. Carrie hadn't had an episode like this since the time she was in the psychiatric ward in 1997. One of the most admirable things about Carrie Fisher was her willingness to talk about mental health issues candidly and honestly. By her talking about her mental illness, she took away the stigma and shame around it. 1 month after that bipolar episode on the cruise ship, Carrie gave an interview with People magazine to talk about that episode and explain why she wasn't ashamed of what happened. Yes, she felt bad that the audience had come to be entertained and, quote, witnessed a car wreck. She felt bad for her family and friends. In the interview, she admitted that she had accommodated her mental illness by developing a big, eccentric personality. As a result, it sometimes made it difficult for her to gauge what her mental state was and whether she was heading towards a manic episode. But she shared that, quote, "The only lesson for me or for anybody is that you have to get help. It's not a neat illness. It doesn't go away," end quote. 2 years later, in 2015, Carrie Fisher made a triumphant return to the big screen in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Many people asked Carrie if she had any hesitation about being in a new Star Wars film.
No hesitation. Female, work in Hollywood, over 40, not happen. So why would I say no?
During the press tour for Episode 7, Carrie and her French bulldog, Gary, appeared on talk shows and news shows. In every interview she gave, whether it was a morning show or at a convention, she was hilarious, cheeky, and often unpredictable. If you encountered Carrie in person, she might bless you with glitter by smudging it on your cheeks or throwing a dash in your hair. Over the years, she attended various conventions and Star Wars celebrations, appearing alongside her former co-stars on panels and doing meet and greets. Carrie used to joke that signing autographs for money at conventions was like the celebrities' version of a lap dance. But she was touched, and sometimes overwhelmed, by the impact her character had on generations of Star Wars fans. Carrie once admitted that the identity of Princess Leia eclipsed any other identity she ever had. She also confessed that it was a mistake to sign away her likeness to George Lucas for free. She said that she didn't want to know how much money she could have made from all the merchandise sold over the years. It would be too upsetting. But that didn't stop her from roasting George Lucas about her bad business deal.
And though amongst your many possessions you have owned my likeness, lo, all these years, so that every time I look in the mirror, I have to send you a check for a couple of bucks.
While Carrie and Leia's identities would forever be intertwined, Carrie Fisher's acting performances outside of Star Wars deserve recognition. She often portrayed characters that were empowered and challenged the norms of how women are supposed to behave, like her character Marie in When Harry Met Sally, who has a Rolodex full of eligible bachelors in the city.
Really, Marie?
Well, how else do you think you do it?
I've got the perfect guy. I don't happen to find him attractive, but you might. She doesn't have a problem with chins.
In the movie Soap Dish, Carrie plays a casting director who gets hot male actors on her casting couch.
I think we could try it one more time, and this time, I don't know. Maybe try one without your shirt.
Sure.
In her hilarious guest starring role on 30 Rock, where Carrie plays a feminist comedy writer who is one of Liz Lemon's heroes.
I really have to go.
I sat around while my junk went bad. All for you. I didn't have any kids. You're my kid. You're my kid that never calls.
Yikes.
Help me, Liz Lemon. You're my only hope.
Carrie Fisher gave so many fantastic performances on screen and on stage over the years, but seeing her back on screen as General Leia in The Force Awakens was emotional for many of us fans. At 59 years old, her performance as Leia exuded strength, resilience, and grace. So it was unfortunate that some fans felt the need to comment on Carrie's physical appearance. But Carrie clapped back at these ridiculous comments by tweeting, quote, "Please stop debating about whether or not I aged well. Unfortunately, it hurts all three of my feelings. My body hasn't aged as well as I have. Blow us," end quote. Carrie Fisher passed away on December 27, 2016, at the age of 60. Prior to her death, she had already filmed her scenes for Episode 8, The Last Jedi, which would be released in December of 2017. Seeing Leia and Luke reunite on screen for the last time was powerful, magical, and emotional. In the film, there are also scenes of young Leia training with Luke. For this, ILM used raw footage from the original films before being digitally inserted over stand-in actors, which included Carrie's daughter, Billie Lourd. For Carrie's appearance in Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, ILM took unused footage from The Force Awakens and digitally altered her hair and costume. But Carrie's final performance on screen was not Star Wars. It was on the comedic series Catastrophe, starring Rob Delaney and Sharon Horgan. Carrie played Rob Delaney's mom, Mia, and throughout the series, she is hilariously witty and even improvised some of her dialogue.
You need to know that that display had nothing to do with Des and everything to do with getting into your pants. You still got it.
There is no doubt Carrie Fisher was a legend. And on May 4th, 2023, she finally received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Mark Hamill was a guest speaker and gave a touching speech about his friend and former co-star.
She was our princess, damn it, and the actress who played her blurred into one gorgeous, fiercely independent, and ferociously funny take-charge woman who took our collective breath away. Determined and tough, but with a vulnerability that made you root for her and want her to succeed and be happy.
Billie Lourd, Carrie Fisher's daughter, accepted the award on her mom's behalf. Whether Carrie Fisher was clapping back at trolls on Twitter, giving hilarious interviews, or pouring her heart out in all 8 of her books, she always unabashedly spoke her mind. It is impossible to express what Carrie Fisher meant to all of us, but this clip encapsulates the Carrie that meant the most to me. I will remember her as the woman who always spoke her truth, and someone who could find the funny and even the most dire subjects. How will you remember Carrie Fisher? I'm sure whatever memory you cling to, Carrie would manage to find the humor in your choice. Thank you so much for joining me on this Jedi Beat journey. What a journey it has been. Be sure to subscribe for more of our ForceCenter videos, deep dives, celebration of all things Star Wars. We are happy that you're here. That's it from me. Until next time, friends, may the Force be with you.